This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Excellent. Welcome everyone to the Community Preservation Act Committee of, what is it, 227, February 27th, 2025. Before we begin, if we could just introduce ourselves and the role we are on the committee. I'm Scott Kavanaugh, I'm the chair of the committee, and I am the mayoral appointee.
Dan Rist, city council appointee. Recently, January 1st, as of January.
Pumpy City Council representative.
Mary Church, Easthampton Housing Authority.
Ken Ivecchia, representing the planning board.
Greg Rollins, city council appointee.
I'm Ava Gerstal. I'm the CPA coordinator.
Yes, you are. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
We're very glad.
Approval of minutes from our January 16th meeting.
Moved.
And we have a second for that.
Sure.
Excellent. All in favor of approving the minutes from January?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions?
Aye, sorry.
Any abstentions? Nays? Excellent. 6. Oh, thank you. Public speak. Oh, Andy, did you just raise your hand, Andy? I was just about to say something about you, but here,
Yes,
you want to
sir.
say something?
Oh, you can go first.
Well, why don't you go first? Because then I was gonna say, why don't you go first?
Well, I know, obviously, you guys know, I just wanted to call in and take a moment to thank everybody. I've been on that board, I've been on that commission for a long time. I think we've done a lot of really good work. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm no longer on the Park and Rec Commission, so I'm not going to be the representative for the CPA. And I just wishing you all the best. I know you got some challenges ahead of you, but you guys do a really good job. And I know it was nice to be on a committee that was I think put the city first, or put the CPA first, you know, the goals and everything. So that's it. I just wanted to call in, say, see you later, guys. And you may see me wandering around a little bit, but I just want to thank you all. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Andy, and don't hang up yet, because I was waiting till the related administrative items to say thank you to you. But while you're there, I want to say thank you to you on behalf of this committee for your years of service on this committee. Your insight has always been extremely appreciated. I wish you were here so we could shake your hand. But we really appreciate all the time and energy you brought to the Community Preservation Act Committee over the years, and how much it's benefited the city of Easthampton. So thank you.
No, thank you, guys. Thank you.
I want to echo that, Andy. I worked with you for so many years. We did a lot of good Park and Rec Department work with the CPA. I actually was hoping there was someone from Park and Rec who could speak to the dog park. So if you want to stay and say anything, unless you've decided you don't feel like it. But anyway, thank you.
I can give you about a 30-second. I can tell you that a location has been approved by the commission in Nonotuck, and that's really all I'm at liberty to discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. It's actually Greg that drove me out. No, kidding. Just kidding. Love you, Greg.
Well, we're glad that's recorded.
Andy, I think you were like, I don't know, you and Jay, you're the old timers here on this committee. So I enjoyed working with you, Andy.
Yeah, it's a pleasure working with all you guys. It really was. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Andy. All right. Public speak, opportunity to address the committee regarding any item not listed on this agenda. Don't say, I'm gonna get to you. City officials, is there any official correspondence that you want to relay?
I have some correspondences from John Mason, but I think we'll do that under open project updates.
Great. Anything else? Nope.
Nope.
Is anybody else on the, sorry.
Yeah, nobody,
What
nope,
happened? Is it?
no one
okay,
else
cool.
is on the call.
You got a thing from Stewart today. Did you see that?
Yes.
15.9% match is being estimated. for
Yeah.
the First November match.
And that's incorporated in the budget.
But we get another match because we have a 3%. And you incorporate that.
Yep. We'll talk about that when we talk about the budget.
Excellent. To your point about making sure we have parks input, that you can introduce yourself. This is Kira Henninger. And Kira reached out to me. We've known each other for years, but Kira is on the Parks Commission. And in light of the fact that there was a vacancy, was asking just about the committee. And I encouraged Kira to come tonight, she's been at CPA meetings before, but also to just see more of how we operate and to be able to informally represent parks tonight, not in a voting way, but just in having been on the commission. So,
Well, it's my hope that you get appointed.
Well, we are doing all of our elections at our March 12th meeting. And so CPA rep will be an election that we'll have and see, I'm not sure if anyone else is interested, but I have been
Well, thank you for
on
coming.
the Parks and Rec for the past year. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And I became a little bit connected to CPA when pickleball was coming forward. And so I was able to observe that meeting. So definitely interested.
You're
And
still here.
I'm definitely interested in, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding anything we've spoken about at Parks and Rec meetings recently. So if you have specific dog park questions, I'd be happy to answer anything I have.
we really appreciate you coming.
Well, okay.
Thanks.
And yeah, this is, tonight seems like it will be slightly mellower than the pickleball meeting. There was what, pickleball, skate park, there were people there, and there was one more.
Housing.
Yeah, it was
Tasty Talk.
Oh,
Tasty
yeah. That was a night.
Trifecta.
What'd you say?
You
You missed the
Trifecta.
great
Joined
meeting,
at the
too.
right time.
Oh, man, we did that one upstairs. It was packed. It was packed upstairs
98% of the people were there for the pickleball. I thought it was going to be the other stuff.
with paddles in hand.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Account balances.
Okay, so account balances, let me share the right tab. Okay, well, let's start actually with the updates from John Mason, and then we'll look at the overall number.
Great.
So I met with John today. He's been doing his diligence in figuring out which of the accounts he's ready to close out and what he needs. So I'm going to run through them, the updates that he gave to me. The first one is the Nonotuck Park Pool Design Funds. And so there was just a $2,823 left in that account that came from both the undesignated and the reserve fund. And yeah, he said those funds are good to come back. The pool project, as we know, is finished. And we're certainly far from the design phase of that project. The next account that he still has open is the Nonotuck Park Pool Construction account, which has $9,446 still remaining in it. He requested to hold on to those funds for one more summer season in case there was some additional maintenance that needed to occur. The committee can be aware that he does have an expired project funding agreement for that one. So the closeout was supposed to be this winter, but he requested one more summer season and that he would close it out in the spring.
For which one? For
The pool construction.
for pool construction. Got it.
Yep,
Yeah.
I can show that
That
on,
makes sense.
yeah. So that's,
There you go. Underneath
yeah, that's this column right here. So
Got
these are the funds that he'd like to hold on to through one more pool season.
Okay. But per the funding agreement, it's supposed to go back winter,
Last
but
winter.
last winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we might need to, okay, yeah, keep going.
Okay, so design funds are coming back. John would like to hold on to pool construction dollars. But then the bigger amount of money is this stone house, the stone house bathroom design. And so these funds were appropriated in 2017 for bathroom like design funds out of the open space account. And then it seems like the scope of the project shifted after the estimates came in too high and there wasn't any grant funding available for design dollars when it lacked any kind of historic designation. So then the project shifted to be about getting a historic designation. Is that the committee's understanding? That's my like cursory understanding of where this project is.
I sort of remember approving the funds from city council, but I don't think I ever heard anything about what happened after
Well, the
that.
design, but we were hoping for park grant money to do the work, and it didn't come in, I guess. But
And so it
come in.
didn't, and I think that it was contingent, spending the money that we approved was contingent on more money coming in, and that more money didn't come in.
Exactly.
I think John had bigger fish to fry with regard to applying for park grant funds.
For other projects.
Yeah. like the
Yes,
pool.
like the pool, right, for sure. Yeah, that's my sense. And then it got tabled. And then I recall an update in the fall when I was here with you all, where he said that they were pursuing this historic designation, which has not yet occurred. And after speaking with John today, we agreed that the best course of action, particularly because those funds were appropriated out of the open space account, is to return the full funds and then have him reapply for just the cost of seeking a historic designation for that building. So this memo really gets at it. He's also incorporating the cemetery in here. So it's both the stone house bathroom, which is like a Depression era WPA project, and the Brookside Cemetery, which is an early work of Bowditch, who was a influential landscape architect. And so I can share, has the committee had a chance to read this?
I know it was in the packet.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay.
Can I just ask a clarifying question on this that
Yeah,
you might not know? But when it says Brookside Cemetery, are we talking about the stone building in the cemetery or literally the cemetery?
We're talking about the whole cemetery.
Okay.
So this other document that he received from PVPC, who is the consultant that John's planning on working with to get these national designations or these state and national designations.
Got it.
Indicated that Brookside Cemetery what John communicated to me is that they were very enthusiastic that it would get a National Historic designation because of the Bowditch connection.
Comfort station.
Have you ever been uncomfortable in there?
I
don't think you've ever been.
No comment.
Really, you're comfortable.
Is there something different about a cemetery being on the National Historic Register versus just other historically significant, I don't know, landmarks or buildings or something? I'm not familiar with cemeteries being on the national, I mean, I imagine.
Depends
there
on
are.
how historic the occupants are. There are some Civil War, maybe Revolutionary War people buried.
We were talking about the
But I don't think
the
it's
same
that.
registry, is that right? The National Historic Register?
Yeah.
That buildings are on is what we're talking about here for the cemetery?
Imagine, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure how that designation is different for cemeteries, but I don't think it is actually about who's buried there. I think it is about the design of it. And what John was telling me is that it's an early work of this landscape architect who then went on to do like the Auburn Cemetery, if folks are familiar with that
I
one.
always thought it was how old the cemetery history.
All right, but basically the main point here is
The main point here is that he's going to return the $27,500, and what he's hoping for is that in the fourth quarter he's going to apply for $14,500 out of the historic preservation account.
great. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Ava, because I feel like Ava following up on this is huge. We talked about trying to regain these funds that have been standing out there for a long time, and a lot of action hasn't happened for years. And I feel like there's momentum there, and this is, someone saying, yes, please take it back, and especially when he's saying, well, I'm going to ask you for some back. it's really helpful to know that like, we're not just sitting on this. So thank you. Really, really appreciate that. And I think this is also a testament to our making it more public that we want to go on a quarterly cycle, and that we have less, we have less funds than we did previously. So if you know of anything coming up, please let us know ahead of time. And John's hearing that and putting that out there. So I think there's a couple positive developments there. So very good.
Totally.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. The other update I had from John, and that is on that fourth quarter sort of threads. I remember that the committee had some questions about the amount that was going to be requested for the spray park do folks remember it was it was 164 versus 164K versus 264K. The spray park, we saw a budget that had both numbers on it.
It had the idea that there was some money coming from some other undetermined source.
Within the city, right? John confirmed for me today that that he does plan to ask for the full 264,000 from the CPA, with the hopes that there might be some other funding within the city or outside grants, but that would be his intention.
Fourth quarter request.
He's intending to submit it as a fourth quarter request and a first quarter request for FY 26.
Yeah, that might be smart.
So
Alright.
to split the
Half and half.
264. And he specifically said actually that because the only work that will be occurring in FY 20, like that will be the first set of work will be design funds, that the committee could choose to split it, not half and half. The committee could choose to split it in a way that would work with the committee's budgeting.
You tell them I would appreciate it if it was applied for as design funds specifically versus construction funds.
As two separate accounts.
Yeah, as two separate applications.
What's the thinking there?
Well, because if they're only gonna do the design in the next fiscal year, let's not put the money out there until we know what the design is and what the cost is. The design dictates the cost.
Right. So I do think he's applying for a park grant, which is a 50-50 grant. And the full cost is 264 times 2.
Oh.
He's going for 512.
We can do one of those promissory letters like we've done before. That's, I don't care.
Fourth quarter, so it's down the line.
Thank you.
Okay. That is all the updates I have from John. Now let's take a look at the available balance worksheet. Okay. So line 23 here in the orange is the funding that the committee still has to appropriate. And that's a combination of the budgeted amounts from fiscal 25 and the undesignated funds that pulled over from previous fiscal years.
If we just go up to, can you just go up to row 6?
Totally.
Just as a preview,
Yes.
if you highlight that row, we're gonna look at the budget this meeting. But you see the 110, 110, 110 designations, and then the 450, and then 24 per admin for the total of 804. You'll see that number for fiscal 25. So that's our budget for the current year that we're in. The presentation we'll see will be vertical on the budget sheet, but just wanted to kind of show you where that resides here on this spreadsheet.
And so those are funds that, like Greg said, those are funds that the committee budgeted based on a meeting in last February for revenue that the committee expected to receive and is still currently receiving this year. So those are tax funds and those are the state revenue that is currently coming in. So we lowball those budget numbers compared to what we actually think we're going to get from a revenue perspective, because it's like we're spending money that we're like currently pulling.
Can you scroll down?
Mhm.
Project closeout funds. I think this is important.
Yeah. So we can take a look at those. So these are the funds that are representative of what we just discussed, the 27.5, and the 15 was from, we reviewed that at the January meeting. and then the 2,823.
So does that add up? So I see 788.24, line 44. And then you add the closeouts, 45,000, correct?
To
The 780
just for what number? Like,
for available balance.
so the committee, my understanding is that the committee is not spending funds that were closed out last year, this fiscal year.
Well, I'm, okay, but they're in there to be spent maybe next fiscal year.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So the 200,000, that looks like future spending.
Yep. That's fiscal 26, this down here.
Okay.
We're missing, you're correct. There could be another one of these like total lines.
Well, the 837,
Is my math wrong?
the 837,
Oh, the 837 is not, it's not using the 780, right? Because this is if the if is the operative word here, if pending projects were fully funded.
We
So
haven't voted on those, so
Exactly.
we're skipping over that middle
Oh,
section.
okay. We haven't voted on Valley CDC, mortgage subsidy, Lathrop invasive, that hasn't been
No,
finally voted on.
no, we're voting on those next month.
at March,
Okay, gotcha.
because those ones were
But
discussed.
you're subtracting them in the assumption that they're positive.
Pending.
Well, yeah, just so you can see what would happen to the
If we
numbers
did
if
it.
we did approve them.
Thank you.
But there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot going on this spreadsheet. So I really appreciate all the questions.
No, it's really helpful. Thank
But
you.
if we, just on a positive side, even if we fund those projects, there's still over 750,000 left in the budget or more.
In the bank.
In this FY 25 account we have.
Mhm, right. So I did take the opportunity just to pull in, knowing that fourth quarter is forthcoming. These are the requests that I know about that are likely to appear before the committee in fourth quarter. The Parks Historic designation that we just spoke about, the spray park, which we know could be split over multiple years, or perhaps as a design and a construction account. And then the dog park, which we'll discuss later. We have a pre-application discussion about that on our agenda. Yeah, go ahead.
The other one that I have to discuss, but I know it's in limbo right now, is the skate park,
Is the
right?
skate park,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
It's,
well,
from the city side, it's seeming more likely to be next fiscal year than it is this fiscal year, but it's obviously still pending.
I think, I mean, I agree. And I think for the future, I think would be helpful for this is like someone that is either, I think we shouldn't, we should either list everything that has been presented to us
As a pre-application.
or not, or don't list it. You know what I mean? I just think it's helpful to be like, instead of saying like, well, you think that one might be likely or that one isn't, like, I don't know. I just feel like it would be helpful to have that up there. Cause then we can know it, like, we can do that math, but I think,
You're saying, I think it's good to have these.
I'm saying it's good to have this. I'm saying I'm
He's saying
also like.
skate park should be there too, is what he's saying.
Yeah, because they did come before us. They did say we were gonna ask for money, then they came before us, said we still want to do this, but we're not sure because of, and it was a significant amount of money, and that's why I like, and I think the committee found it to be a valuable project. I know they're still trying, like, but I think it's important to keep it up. So we could, I know they did.
I
give us
do
a number.
too. I agree with you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I appreciate it. When the more information I
You know what
the
the
better.
figure is?
Well, it's changed. That's partially why the number's moved around. I don't know the most recent number off the top of my head.
It was like 100.
So this whole section has to be taken with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
really.
Super.
It's like, it's, preliminary, presented, but not applied for.
Exactly, right.
Requests or
It's
something like
like
that, or
If we did this,
And
preliminary discussion for, whatever it is, yeah.
right.
I
and
mean,
the-
because really what it is, and I guess the reason I would like to see like whatever the skate park number is in there, because really what this is useful for is once this number gets to 0, we have to really start realizing anything we're voting on means we're not funding something else. And that could very likely happen. You know what I mean? So like, like, you know, so we have to think about everything that goes along with that. Okay, maybe we would spend that money without, because this other project we don't think is gonna happen, but we still need, I think it's important for us to recognize like the universe we're working with.
I think the most recent number I have from them is 175.
Great. Hope you deleted it by mistake.
You're very good with Excel.
I'm all right.
Well, you should be, you're an economist.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, those
I
are.
mostly use R these days, but yeah, I'm certainly know how to use Excel.
So
like, even with that, there'd be
209 left.
209, because that 79 is negative in that column, but that negative still affects that last column, right? The
Mhm.
209, yeah, so, okay. All right, helpfully.
but we'll hide those for now. And they will come up again as the committee begins to review fourth quarter applications.
Great, thank you. Can we look at open projects before we leave, before we
Yeah.
go on?
Okay, open project balances. So these reflect my numbers for what the committee has appropriated at this point. They have not been reconciled with Hadel's numbers. So they aren't necessarily reflective of where the city's auditor and treasurer are at with this, but this is the combination of the last update I've received from them and the invoices I've paid out and the money that the committee has appropriated.
Great. I know at one point we had drafted a letter, and I know one part of this is there was a lot that went through planning, but now we have a person in planning, right? That I think has had a few weeks now to get their feet under them. I'd really like to have, I mean, anything, some of these are open that we know are actually actively in progress.
Yep.
But for anything that is not, I'd really like to send that letter out to them to say, come to our, maybe not March, because we're going to be voting on stuff, but April meeting. If you have any reason why you still need this money, if not, be aware that because they've already expired, we don't even need to vote on this. If you don't approach us, this money will be returned to the CPA budget in fiscal year 25. Because it just like $45,000 in 3 projects. That's like a 5% addition to our budget just with found money. And there could be a lot more here. So, and I really appreciate everything you've done with this. I'd really like to see that additional part happen.
Especially the Alcadel Orchard. That's FY17 money.
Yeah, I mean so those funds are, so I'm also the conservation agent, right?
Okay, so you know about.
Yeah, and we're contracting with, we have an invasives plant manager who's doing treatments this spring. So, I mean, I will say, Scott, my sense of this is the only account on here that I see as not having any movements other than, well, we have the Mount Tom North, which I think I've received different answers about whether or not they wanted to. The last I heard was that there was a desire to keep some funds in for another year or another couple years.
That's planning department.
That's planning department. So we could ask the planning department about that. And then the Manhan Rail Trail from FY10.
I mean, definitely Manhattan Rail Trail. What about the mountain bike?
There's also movement there.
But like movement on what? That was 4 years ago. Like just, it was on something that was proposed that didn't happen, right? Like,
Totally.
I guess it should, I think if
You
the
would like-
project has expired,
Mhm.
you don't have like carte blanche to be like, we're still working on this in some way. We've got this money, like reapply. Exactly. Like it's not that it's not a worthy project, but if you don't spend the money in the way you said you were spending the money, you don't just get to sit on it for years. Like
Do something else with it.
like we have things that we want to fund. Like we don't like, so I just think it's important for them. I mean, Valley CDC, we're talking to them. On the pool, we know. Town hall, okay, we know. Treehouse. Treehouse support.
We just did that.
We just did that. That was before. I was out at that meeting. That's how now I remember. So everything else here is new, right? Okay.
Everything else is
So
still
really, I
expired.
think, man, I mean, the Echo Dole Orchard, because you're saying you're still like,
I'm happy to present. I can present.
it's
on-
you?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay.
I mean, so both Echo Dale and Borkowski mountain bike parcels are conservation projects.
Okay,
That I've
yeah.
inherited, but are, you know, opening up again. They're open space projects. The previous conservation agent was also the climate change, was also the sustainability coordinator. So open space projects were really on the back burner while she was working on other climate projects. Now those are two roles. I'm the conservation agent and I do open space management, and there's a sustainability coordinator, which is a whole separate role. So it's freed up space to reinvigorate some of these projects.
Which
But
is great.
I'm happy to present that to the committee, right? I can give you an update on where these projects are at.
I think
Great.
it just, as far as I'm concerned, I'm trusting you. But if Scott wants something in writing, that's.
I did like the mountain bike, like 20, I don't know, like 20, I think it's good practice to just, yeah, I think it should be like just 5 minutes
Yeah.
next time. You know what I mean? Say
Sounds
like, this
good.
is what we're doing. This is what was presented. Cause like this was voted on 4 years ago. We don't remember what, I mean, I have a vague memory, but like to say like, this is what happened. This is what we're doing in the next few months. Cause I also don't want it to be, and I'm not saying for you, I'm saying for precedent. We need to like, not just be like, yeah, I'm still doing that.
Right.
If we're not making you reapply, then at least like refresh our, like, what, you know, this was what was allocated. Here's what happened or didn't happen. Here's what we think is going to happen in this next cycle. That'll help all of us reset because we've
Yeah.
seen turnover
I
and
think it's
people on
a
the
great
committee
idea.
and so forth. I totally support what you say, Scott.
Totally.
Thank you. Occasionally. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. And thank you for all your work
Yeah.
with, you know, that's how you find $45,000. I'm like, keep going. And it's you. Sorry. You make more work. All right. Thank
All right.
you. Budget presentation.
Budget. Okay. You all should have a paper copy in front of you. Greg was right that we did go from rows to columns.
We go diagonal next time.
Cotton uses. Great. Okay. So, oh, actually, you know what? Let's go back to open account balances for a quick second. We have gone around and around on this, but I'm pretty sure that we figured it out. So Ferry Street from fiscal 25, there was a question about whether or not that could be appropriated out of the affordable housing, which I know is what the committee intended it to be. However, it was written into the budget as its own line item last year. So last year, the way the budget was written, 110,000 went into the affordable housing set aside and 200,000 went directly into the Ferry Street account. Does that make sense to the committee? So when I went to go do the supplemental appropriation for Ferry Street for fiscal 25, like I had been told by a bunch of people that I had to do, it was thrown back to me from the auditor. She said this already occurred. This occurred when the budget was approved on July 1. And it was pulled out of the reserve fund, or rather it was just budgeted. Like it was just written into the actual budget that 200,000 immediately was going to go into Ferry
We
Street.
had voted, as I recall, was it 2 or 3 fiscal years of spending money on the project, up to 500,000?
Yeah. It's more the bucket it was coming from is the issue.
Right, so that's why it was done in a budget.
Right.
Appropriation per issue.
Right.
I don't think it was intended that the city would write it in on their side
Right.
As a
that
budget
way.
item. Right.
Exactly, but
And-
that's what happened.
We've
That's what
never-
happened.
We've never done it.
Right. So my plan for how we're going to do that moving forward. So just to be clear, so there was 450,000. This was the way that Greg and I worked out this, but really there was 250 in the reserve and then there was 200 in this like Ferry Street account. That's what we see happening in line 15 here, which means that the committee still has $200,914 in affordable housing, which we can discuss when we get to Valley CDC too. But so I just wanted to
Right,
make that
But
clear.
couldn't we, that 100, so and then, I mean, in fiscal year 26,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
200 would get merged with like 110 and then we and we would take the 200 from that and then the next, well, whatever.
Okay, so my plan for fiscal 26, so we don't do this again, is that we start by putting 200,000 into the affordable housing bucket, which will be immediately appropriated to Ferry Street.
Great. Perfect.
So that's an additional 90,000. That's 6I.
Oh, this is.
So it doesn't have, yeah, sorry, it doesn't have, it's the,
Oh, is it up there?
it's this spot right here.
Yeah, 330. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Can I ask a question? Is there a way to, I mean, because the mandate to be able to spend it this way is from the state. Does it have to be? Can we because we're still spending it that way. Does it have to be budgeted that, like, does it have to be budgeted that way in order for it to count that way with the state? Meaning, like, do we, in doing the new budget, do we have to keep that money in there? That we,
instead of, do we have to put it in affordable housing instead of just immediately putting it in Ferry Street? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think we could. I think for just for like the ease of how the city typically does this, like this occurring in the budget cycle without a supplemental appropriation, which meant that it didn't go to city council as its own supplemental appropriation. It just got approved in the budget cycle, really messed everyone up.
yeah.
So I think for the ease of like the city, if we do it as we put 200,000 in the affordable housing set aside, and then it is just a typical supplemental appropriation.
I mean, we're fixing it for next year. There's no way to refix it from this year, I guess, is what I'm getting
I
at.
don't think
Is to,
so.
is to free up that money to other projects.
I don't think so.
Which is
Well,
a
it carries over.
bummer. But
It carries over, but it's locked to affordable housing. It's fine. I'm all for affordable. I just, yeah, I mean.
we
you
like
know,
unrestricted dollars better than restricted dollars. is the
Right.
bottom
And
line.
historically, we've always spent,
But given the amount of affordable housing projects, I'm not worried about it being spent. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a best practice point of view, I agree with what you're saying completely. And also, I think it'll probably shake
Yeah,
out in a
okay.
way that's probably not gonna be the end of the
Well,
world.
for
but
next year, you're.
It's good that we're
putting-
having these conversations.
Well, and especially because what we're doing effectively by putting the 200 that we know we're going to use as the budget here for affordable housing, it's like that 110 that just would be the ordinary placeholder is kind of being freed up, right? Because for this cycle at least. So we've kind of ended up with more restricted dollars for fiscal 25, but the way that Ava's structured it here.
because we're not putting in 200 plus whatever the
110.
It's not
110
110 plus 200, it's
Right,
just.
it's
yeah.
the, whatever the 110 is gonna be plus the 90, then we have, yeah, okay, fine. Fine, great, cool.
Okay, so that's what my proposal is for the affordable housing. For open space and historic preservation, I just kept with what,
Sorry, I'm sorry. It can't be, it still has to be whatever the one, if it's 110 from, the 110 is the new money. That's the 10%.
Mhm.
I got it. And then we're backfilling it with unrestricted to get up to the 200 and then spending. Yeah, never mind. Sorry, keep going. Sorry, I wanted to understand.
yeah, it's great. So
The
then,
total CPA budget is 811.
Yep.
200,000 of it is in affordable housing.
And 100% of that is gonna get spent on this one project, and then we can spend other affordable housing out of undesignated.
Yes.
precisely, yep,
You have to spend, you really want to spend out of those three areas if you can.
totally.
But don't we have to, but isn't the issue that we had 200,000 left over, that we might have 200,000 left over in affordable housing this year?
That's
we're-
not going to show up on our budget though. This budget is only for our projected incoming revenue.
Okay.
So all the money that we are
Budget, we might
carrying,
have 400,000 there
sure,
in affordable housing.
sure, yes, that might happen. However, 200 of it
Because
is
of this year.
immediately going to leave.
That's what I'm
Gonna
getting.
carry over.
Yeah.
But it's
That's what I'm-
still
Do we have to
in
make
affordable
do we
housing.
have to do a vote on that 200 for this coming?
For this meeting, you're voting on the budget.
But it's, we've already voted on the project. We don't need to vote on it just because we're in a new fiscal year. As soon as we vote and approve the budget, the 200 will be in and out. Is that right?
I think the way that we have it written in this budget, I will do it as a supplemental appropriation at the start of the fiscal year.
Okay.
But you don't have to vote on it. The committee finished voting on Ferry Street when they voted for the full 500,000 split over 3 years.
So the city council has to get the appropriations, but we've already voted on it.
Precisely. But for fiscal 25, the city council never saw an individual appropriation because it just got folded into the budget that they voted on.
So I have a question
Yeah.
for you and Greg. There's 200,000 left over this year in affordable housing, correct?
Correct.
Why don't we just put 110 in that account? Because we have the 200,000 coming to us. So you could do your supplemental, you still have enough. And then there's 90,000 that goes back into undesignated. I'm only saying that because that 200,000 is carrying over. Am I correct there?
Yes.
Unless the committee chooses to spend it in third or fourth quarter.
We
fiscal.
have affordable housing projects coming up?
We do. We have an 142,000.
The CDC, Valley CDC.
Oh, never mind then. I'm sorry.
I will write, but it's still,
No, I think we should leave it there because it's only 60,000.
yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Don't you love when you do a ton of work on something and immediately people are like having questions?
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
No,
No, I count myself in that
I
too.
forgot about.
I thought about that too. I was like, why are we locking up additional to be able to, it's fine, keep going.
Okay.
No, I forgot about that.
So an $811,000 budget, which is going off of our revenue estimate. So we followed Jamie's practice here, which is to say that she only would, her revenue estimate for the fiscal year would be only off of round 1 of the state match, which is the only, that's a revenue estimate that we received today information from the Community Preservation Coalition saying that we think, based on where the DOR numbers are, we expect there to be a 15.9% match.
We'll get more, but that round 2, round 3 will carry over to the next fiscal year. We
Precisely.
can't spend it
Exactly.
this
Right.
year.
But the committee will get the round 2 and round 3 numbers from this current fiscal year, FY25. The committee got funds in rounds 2 and 3, and those will become free. They will show up in the undesignated pot.
Usable.
Yes.
We're just a year behind in using it, basically.
Precisely, right. So
Refreshing
that,
my memory.
What that means is that our account balance, just sort of to kind of, our account balances that we look at, when we roll that forward for the new fiscal year and we get the new account balances on top, the money that was round 2 and round 3 from the prior years will plop in at the top as undesignated. So whatever that dollar amount will be, it's not.
Oh, because that doesn't need to be
It's not
10, 10,
current-
10,
it's not
70.
currently represented here, but when we get new numbers for the year, that we will have additional funds, this manna out of heaven, it will seem, that will show up in the undesignated column because it's the round 2 and round 3 match.
The only thing I would question is if there's leftover money in one of the 3 areas that have to stay in that area,
they do.
doesn't go to undesignated. In
No.
other words, if there's 60,000 left over or whatever in affordable housing, it carries over, but goes
Into
into the
affordable
affordable
housing.
housing account.
The
Well,
only-
and that will happen because we have the columns set up as they are.
Yeah.
But the round 2, round 3 match money.
I'm saying it
is
doesn't
not part of
automatically
that.
become undesignated. We still have to spend it as affordable housing.
Right.
If
The-
it's carrying over.
The only funds that are undesignated are the undesignated fund on the available balance sheet is the previous year's undesignated project closeouts that were closed out from undesignated, and the round 2, round 3 funds.
Okay.
Everything else that is unattached funding goes into the revenue. That's how the reserve fund that's our budgeted unattached fund.
Where is the fund that Hadel wants that is our protection? I don't know, what are we calling that? Our insurance.
The safe harbor.
The safe harbor
It-
reserve.
It's not a budgeted item. It is something that we track on the
Count sheets?
account. Yeah, I think it's in the second section of the account
Oh, there it
balance
is, right
sheet.
there.
Yeah,
Safe Harbor Reserve.
120 is what we have there.
Right.
So that's something we just do off books. It's, that the city doesn't keep anything in their ledger on the safe harbor. We just have
We
been
just don't spend it.
advised to track that on our own, essentially,
Just in
not
case
get that low.
Something comes up and we didn't have the money.
Just something gets screwed up.
Since that started maybe 2 years ago,
Yeah, I remember that.
since CPA was adopted, we never had it.
But CPA always had a lot more funding.
Never came close enough to having to be worried about it either.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, that's what.
All right.
prompted it.
This is
Okay.
great.
And
Do we have to vote on?
you do, yeah. Does anyone have any other questions about it?
Yeah. Budget, I have questions on budgets. Anybody else? I'll just jump in. Okay, so, I want to go over the highlights.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there was a reason for the highlights, and I just want to make sure that we're covering.
You put in highlights, you get questions.
like those colors.
Yeah, so tell us about the highlights
I
first.
honestly don't know. I worked on this budget with the planning director, and I
Okay.
believe she put in the highlights.
Okay, great. Okay, there you go. So one thing I'm going to suggest is that the columns that say you original
Mhm. Budgeted.
should be called budgeted.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, budget or budgeted for, you know, you don't have to choose one, but you can change it right now if you want. But those are essentially what that means. Original is the budget, it's budget to actual
Let's
figures.
keep it all caps, just for consistency.
Although isn't this just the template that all,
Listen to him.
isn't this just the
These-
template that the city uses for everything?
This is the
Like, I
template the
agree that
city
that's-
uses.
Tell the city that they need to update their columns.
I trust Greg on this.
If it's the budget, call it the budget. I don't know what original is. I'm just saying this because I deal with budget
You
to
should
actual all
say
the time.
original budget maybe, but budget is
Right. Yeah,
appropriate.
no, it's implied, but I don't like things that are implied. If we're all looking at this, we should be like, you know, using
Yeah.
plain English. So that's good. So then you have these, and then the actual, let's see. And then actual to date is year to date 2025 essentially.
That's what's been spent.
That it's not actually, those are budget numbers there. So I did have a question about that. What is that column supposed to indicate?
I'm sorry, where are we looking at?
Column H,
Column H.
because it's basically the budget except for the
The
admin lines.
Admin. That's a great question. I mean, I think this is the
We had a salary drop because Jamie wasn't on board for a few.
right. You didn't have a coordinator for a while. And then my salary's lower than Jamie's salary was.
What?
Jamie was the senior planner. So that lowers the amount there. I'm not really sure how H is serving us.
I think maybe it's useful down at the lower part of this.
Yes.
And less useful up top.
I
I
think
mean, I
that's
guess
correct.
I would get rid of H for the top section, if that was the only reason for that column, because it's just repeating the budget, but I just wanted to clarify that, okay. And so those are,
Well, it's useful, like in the CPA, the admin salary is different.
Right.
In
Which
other
means
words, we are gonna spend 200,000 on Ferry Street and we are gonna spend, unless the 110.
Yeah, that's my only thing, because that's
Because I
not
don't think we
exactly
spent all of
accurate,
it, did we?
right?
you haven't spent them. But they remain what was budgeted.
Sure,
just
but
what's-
when
They
I
remain-
see this, when I'm in my budget hearings, usually that column is what's been spent so far.
Yeah.
Because that, you know, when we are doing this thing, I think what we normally look at there is trying to say like, well, did you end up, because say that there's a thing which you budget a certain amount, but then there's something and you need to come back for a bunch of appropriations and stuff, and suddenly your spent to date is way above your budget. That's something that I might flag to say, well, what is your plan for next year? Or like simultaneously, if you've only spent 20% of it, I might say, what's that all about?
the challenge is that the CPA operates differently than the city budget in that the CPA carries over balances, whereas the city budget refreshes every year.
Yes.
So it's discretionary how we want to use that column, and we certainly could say what portion of the budget had been used, but we can go well over what would be budgeted in a single year because we're using funds that we have had carried over from prior years.
Okay, fair enough. So I just
Yeah,
won't
that-
think
that
about it
is
too
a
hard when
big
it comes to
difference.
finance. I guess I never.
Yeah,
thought
Thank
before.
you, Greg. That's a huge difference.
It's very different for, it's just not just a singular
I
kind of.
never understood,
That's what
why we
makes-
did that. So we could have a lot of free cash.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as free cash. It's not free.
Although Liberty Tax on Union Street, you go in there, it's like free cash for anybody or whatever. It's like, it's such a
Want your
aggressive.
refund? Here's your cash.
Like,
Oh, I'm sorry, I
what's the
made a
work?
mistake. You owe the IRS.
Greg, do you have any other questions on the budget?
Not the top part.
Up here.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, I think
So
so.
this is-
I'm happy
this is
to
what we're
vote on
getting.
it. It looks like potential total department revenue 911.
So we're gonna get 105. Like when we start the year, just in the undesignated, we'll just drop another 105 in.
Yeah, so
That's not
East
too shabby.
Hampton, it's worth it to take a look at some point if you're curious at the CPA round 2 and 3 calculators. East Hampton scores really well on those
Yeah.
calculators. We're eligible because we have a 3% surcharge,
Mhm.
and then we get more funding in that. I can't remember exactly all the elements of it, but I know it has to do with the wealth of the community and the size of the community, and that sets us up well to get more in these rounds 2 and 3.
So that 105,
That's what we know we're getting this fiscal year. We've actually already gotten it
do you have it in the accounts already? No.
No.
Okay.
We can't
So-
spend it till next fiscal.
because it wasn't budgeted.
No, but next year we'll have one.
Yeah.
105,000. And then we might get, we don't, 100,000, you just put that in there for FY 26 because it's such an unknown.
Such an unknown.
So you had my question with the highlights. So the
Yeah.
up a little bit further where it says 693 highlighted.
Yeah.
Why is it highlighted? Do we not know that number?
We don't know that number. That's our local tax raised this year.
Yep.
So that is the quarters 1 and 2 times 2.
Oh, okay. So it is an estimate,
It's an estimate. That's projected.
but it's conservative estimate. Is that right? It's considered a conservative estimate?
We do this, but this number is a round number, which that was the planning director's choice.
Sure, yeah.
But it's based on the actuals, the true actuals, not the projected actuals, but the true actuals for fiscal 24
Yeah.
times 2.5%.
1.02.
Yeah, 1.025%.
Yeah.
So we're not actually using our projected number
You're
here.
using 24 to get to 26.
Exactly.
I
We're
see, okay.
bypassing
And then
25.
what's the interest and other revenue that's highlighted? on the statement?
Down here,
Yeah.
this is these are the funds that we get. This is the revenue that we get from just our money sitting in accounts.
So it is just straight interest?
It's just
I didn't know what the
interest.
other revenue
Oh,
piece
I
of it was, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think
So
so.
every project is in a city account.
Mhm.
So they come and say, here, reimburse us.
Right.
So that's gaining interest,
Yes,
which comes back to us.
Right.
Not in their account.
it doesn't go into their account, no. Which is like, we have like $4 million sitting in accounts.
And it's only 5,000 interest? Seems low.
Interest rates.
Anything else? Anything else for anybody? All right, I think we should vote on this.
I move we accept the FY 26 budget as presented by Eva to this evening.
I do have one.
Yep.
Going to
Go for it.
more discussion.
No, it's
before the-
okay.
Before the
I
vote.
withdraw my motion.
No, you can, the motion can stay on the table, that's fine. It was at this point last year when we did discuss set asides, Old Town Hall. I think we set aside 250 as part of the budget process in February of 2024. And if there were, I don't know if we had any inclination to do any set aside for this budget, but if we did, would this be the time to discuss that?
I'm not in favor at this time. Talk about the clock and things like that for historic preservation coming up, and I think that to me is city space can present. The reason that was originally used was we had I think it was a $3 million bond approved by the city council. We've been giving them cash. So the total appropriation of 3.5 million has dropped by the cash we've given. I don't feel we need to keep putting that aside because we're not gonna bond, as you've stated, Greg, it's not fiscally responsible to bond for like $1 million, which is all they have left, or even less than that.
The
So
idea is
putting
hopefully
250
we
in.
wouldn't have to bond because we've socked it away, but if we don't sock it away, then where the funds?
I spoke to the
I
mayor
could
about
go
it.
either way.
I spoke to the mayor about it and she thought that there was also opportunity to take like I forget exactly what she said, from the state, basically, short-term,
Revolving or something.
loan somehow, like, I forget what there's a,
Did you want?
what is it? Yeah,
It's also relevant to note that the committee, I believe the project funding agreement that promised City Space the full $3.5 million has expired. So it is up to that's just of note.
yeah, I think we should, your question was if we wanted to do that. If anybody had the inclination to do that, this is the time to do it. For a number of reasons, I don't have that inclination. Does anybody have that inclination?
I don't at this time.
So I think we should keep moving.
I will, yes, I just wanted to make sure before.
Yeah, no, I
you know,
appreciate it.
And just along that bonding issue or that loan issue, if that comes forward, we'll know what that costs, what the amortization is, and then we could put money aside every year for that, just like we did for 30. Right? Do that.
And the other thing the mayor says, you could lump, if we needed to bond for it, we could lump this in with other city needs in a larger bond to make that more desirable.
As long as the state's okay with that.
I think there's a number of ways to do it, but I don't think that we need to do it in this. So
It's fun.
So my motion is still on the floor. Needs a second.
Second.
excellent. All in favor of approving this budget? Aye. Abstain. Against. Excellent. 6-0. Thank you for all your work on this. Awesome. All right. We have here, unless you think that all we talk about is budgets in the CPA, this is actually abnormal.
This is
Just
the
so
one
you know,
meeting.
because you're like, why would I want to be part of that? They're just talking about like numbers the entire time. Most of what we talk about is people come here and say, we've got this wonderful project for our community. And we talk about that and try to help that and help improve it. And then we fund it and then amazing things happen. So that's really typically more what happens in this committee. Just
I think it was useful actually as like context too, just like where is this money coming from?
In other
and
words,
how
we
is it
didn't
designated,
scare
how to
her
make
away yet.
decisions. I think it was very
awesome.
helpful.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm like, I didn't want to scare you away from that. Perfect. All right. New business dog park pre-application letter. We got a letter from the dog park folks.
Yeah.
Back
We call ourselves,
from
the Friends of the Easthampton Dog Park.
you're here? Are you here on behalf of the?
I am, yeah, so
I didn't know that.
I'm abstaining from the vote, obviously.
We're not voting on anything.
I know,
anyway,
but I'm just
but
saying.
when you do,
Yeah.
okay. Were you involved with it back when it was?
Not when
with
it
us
first
before?
started.
Okay.
Karen knows a lot about this project. Especially when it comes to Park and Rec. But, so I don't know if you folks know that there are 1,800 dog licenses in Easthampton. There is no place for a dog besides their own home if it's fenced in to roam off leash. And what we wanted to do was provide a place where, you know, it's fenced in, that the dogs can roam free. The community can gather whoever has dogs and kind of like get to know each other. So we thought it would be a good idea to put this in the, thank you. Not a talk, but I just want to come up here and show you something. So this is Pavilion 3. This is where the dog park's going to be. This is Pavilion 3. This is where the existing restrooms are. This is going to be the small dog fenced in park, and this is the large one.
Are you talking about small dogs or a large area?
Small dogs in the
Okay.
small area,
That's
and
good
large
to know.
dogs in the large area.
I was wondering how they, I'm not a dog person, but
What else can I show you?
So just for site, this is like in back of the softball field,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah,
well, Pavilion 3 is right near,
The softball field's at the bottom of the screen.
Right.
The parking lot for the softball is right there at the bottom of the screen. And
Okay, so it's where that road splits. Okay.
yes, the other
Yeah.
road goes to the back.
Yeah. I got it.
so, you know, we need a fence. What else do we need? We need, to cut some trees down. So we need money for that. We need about $31,000 to not cut all the trees down, but the brush and some of the old trees that may be hanging over. And we may need about $61,000 for that fence. So what we are planning to do is submit the, the full, application before April 3rd and only ask for about $31,000. And then we'd come back later, once we get matching funds for the 31,000, for 86,000, I'm sorry, it was 86,000 for the fence. That's our plan. There's so much more information that I don't have on here that when we do come back, we'll be able to answer all questions and we'll have a better scope of this whole project. But we just wanted to get this in front of you as a pre-application letter.
When do you think it's coming back?
Yeah, so let me hold on.
April 3rd.
If April 3rd is, I think, 4/5/2025. If you get it before April 3rd,
Fifth, yeah.
April 5th, sorry, yeah. So that would be,
The hope would be this fiscal year.
yes, this
Yeah.
fiscal year, yes,
For the 31 or for the 86?
for the 31.
Now, do you have a Stanton grant pending? Are you trying to get that?
We couldn't get that Stanton grant, I don't think, because we didn't have, an actual
time.
place, right? No,
I'm saying you're trying to get one.
yes,
right?
yeah.
Didn't that program close?
We
It was-
did, we used some of it for the original design.
Yes.
And then if there was money in a grant, you lost it because you didn't have a design.
Right,
You didn't
right.
have a location.
We didn't have a location, that's correct.
I just thought that foundation was no longer handing out grants or something like that. Maybe
Well, I
I
don't know about that.
misremembered. I thought that's what I heard. Maybe not.
I
I shouldn't talk. I have no idea. I thought I heard that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, just,
So, yeah,
I'll ask Joan about that, Joan Curtis.
just to be clear, so you're the vice president of the,
Yeah.
okay, got it. So any other, so you're gonna come back, but like from this pre-application, is there any immediate question? We don't think we need to get too deep into it
Yeah.
because there's gonna apply, and we really appreciate the dog park folks coming at, as soon as we know to give us a heads up. Are there any other immediate questions from the committee?
just as long as it's fully detailed, budget.
Yep, we'll
what
make sure it's
dollars
fully
being
detailed.
spent on. And
Yes.
if you have any matching funds, that helps.
Oh, so we do have some funds. We may match with assets. Can we do that?
Dogs don't count.
Like a watering station for a dog may be worth $15,000. Could that be included as a matching fund?
Like an
from-
in-kind contribution.
Yeah, if somebody's providing
Yeah,
that,
someone is
and the city
providing,
is
right.
Kind
not,
contributions have been estimated in the past.
Okay, great, excellent.
Anybody else? Concerns, questions? Well, things that I know I'd want to hear about, are the like number of trees coming down. Like I'm definitely concerned about cutting down trees in Nantucket Park.
Yeah. that was my question.
Well, it's all gonna be
Yeah,
under
you don't
the,
have to like answer it now. It's
No.
more, this is more like for when you guys come back in a bigger way. I know that like, these are the things that I would be thinking about is trees, impact on wildlife. With a fence, is that a wildlife corridor? Are there, this is a big wildlife area for.
this is all gonna be under the direction of John Mason. He's gonna be walking the field. He is going to be giving us direction. And we can ask him about it.
Well, hopefully a
then,
lot of this has already been adjudicated. to the
Yeah, I mean,
Parks Commission.
yeah.
And then, and you might just know this already, but the winter, is that a plan?
Closed, I believe it's gonna be closed.
That the dog park will be
The
closed?
dog park.
Yeah, so it won't be, although people might walk,
They
closed
could.
house, so, I mean,
Yeah.
people can walk in. Okay. All right, but those, like, I would
It's off
definitely,
leash season when the park is closed, people walk in and they just let
they let their dogs out anyway,
roam
but I mean,
around, so
but
I've seen
the
that
impact on the trees and on the wildlife, I think is my biggest concern. I mean, I do think that the location is nice in that, I know one of the biggest concerns before was people did not wanting this next to their house, and this isn't next to their house.
Mhm.
It's like animal pickleball. It's like, put it somewhere where it's not gonna have anybody here. But I do worry about trees and other impact on wildlife. So just so you know, and coming
You're
back,
gonna be
that's those are the
asking.
questions. that I-
Okay.
Anybody else have anything like that? Kira, did you want to say anything? Yeah.
I'll just say that the Parks and Rec Commission did approve this as the location, and at our last meeting, we approved this as the concept plan so that they could use that in their application to apply for grants. Bill Cannon is the landscape architect who has been doing all of their designs and has worked really well with the dog park group and the Parks and Rec and John Mason, the director, about addressing issues as they came up. One of the reasons this site was chosen over the other site in Nonotuck Park was because of the impact on kind of the flowers that the lady slipper flowers, you know, that are not on the endangered list. We could have, you know, gone ahead with that, but that was also, you know, when you look at where the activity in Nonotuck Park is, that other site was more towards like passive.
Where was that?
It was like where the metal playground, like that abandoned playground where like
The
that
space shuttle?
circle thing, yeah,
Yeah.
was over there. And there
Okay.
has been some clearing done over there because of the trees and the state that the trees were in that needed to be removed. But we thought this would be less of an impact on, you know, the park
Yep, that makes
itself.
sense.
And yeah, I
Compared to
mean,
that site, I mean, this has underutilized parking right next to it too, which I feel like is.
Thanks, Kara, for
Yeah.
answering those questions. I
yeah,
appreciate
and
it.
it's, you know, it's right across from the pool parking lot. When you come in, and we actually talked when we did, as part of this concept, John Mason and Bill had talked about kind of before you get to, when you're coming down the hill, before you get to the bathrooms, there are 2 picnic sites, like U and T there. And then there's like some boulders, and there's no, that are kind of in the way of like a dirt area that they could fit in, like, I think 8 parking spots that would not be of like a big cost. They would just move the boulders and put some gravel down just to add in some parking as well. That would help with both the pavilion and closeness to the bathroom parking. And they would resurface the crushed stone handicap parking spaces right now that actually like could use an upgrade and add a couple spaces there too as well. So additional things happening that would improve use, everyone who's using the park, not just for the dog park. That would be a little bit more cost, but big upgrades.
Thank you for that. I do wonder, just, like, I feel like, so is the main, it seems like when you're talking this sort of the main entrance would be up here. I guess the room,
Yeah, I can.
one thing that I was thinking with that was, this feels like a pretty congested area where this parking lot is often empty. Like, I don't know if there's access this
So
way.
this is like when you come down into the park, and the ADA bathrooms are right here. There's a couple of like handicap parking spots here. And there's this like gravel walkway to get to the
Yeah.
baseball fields over here.
Right.
And the pavilion. So the issue is springtime, even fall, baseball and softball, on those days, there is no parking. Everyone's parking on like the
Yeah, on
pathway
the
that you
Saturday,
know,
yeah.
when you walk in. So the entrance originally was over here, and we switched that
Did
to
switch
over here so that they could utilize the pool parking lot. And
All right.
you know, walking down into the park, it would be closer to the entrance as well. And then as for the
Yeah, I
trees,
Yeah,
Bill
maybe-
Cannon did do like a walkthrough with, I forget the person's name, but someone who is knowledgeable about trees. And there are
Roberts?
some bigger trees that need to, George maybe? Did he used to be the,
George Meckler?
he used to be the, he works for Park and Rec, and he used to be the tree warden or
Well, he doesn't work for, I thought he retired.
I think he retired as well, but you might.
Good.
Anyway.
He knows what he's talking about.
Anyway, someone who is knowledgeable said there were some bigger trees that did need to come down, that they would want to take them down for safety anyway.
Okay.
And that there's more of what's coming down is like smaller saplings, and like brush vegetation. So there will definitely be some clearing.
But there'd be some trees remaining within the dog
The
park
idea is to
area.
keep many you know, they want some open space for them to run, but for
Yeah.
it to be like a naturally
But it's not to
shaded
like
space.
clear out the whole area for
No,
a dog.
not at all.
All right.
Not at all.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And actually, sorry, last question. Was there, because we were talking about sites, in the more recent discussion of this, it had been narrowed just to Nonotuck Park, essentially, to those two. There was nothing out, like, and part that's what.
Yeah,
Parks
we had
wants
looked
to do.
off of Ferry Street. There was like a parcel.
I know a while ago, and then over here.
Yeah,
is that-
but they had
like,
looked
but then this is where it had been, and
Yeah.
and the commission felt good about that. Oh,
We
great.
voted yes, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we want a dog park. We need some money and we will be coming like in April.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on. All right. Awesome. Clock. Let's
Well-
clock it up.
Greg and I have been discussing this, and we had a meeting with the mayor. Just to update everybody, we want to get the feeling of the CPA committee. It's been I wanted this clock renovated when I was on the city council. Greg did too, because it belongs to the city. And to make it clear, we went through the city attorney and we established that this clock does belong to the city. It includes face, internal mechanisms, some structure.
And I'm just gonna pause you, shit. Mary, do you know what clock we're talking about, by the way? This is just to back, so, because Dan wasn't on the committee for a year, but this goes back to when he was. And I just want to make sure you know where we're talking about. In the congregation,
Across from Big E's,
the
Oh,
church.
okay,
there's the
that's the clock.
steeple with the clock.
Okay,
That clock is the city clock.
And so the church is a private church. But what Dan's talking about is the clock inside the church, which is privately owned. The clock is actually publicly owned. The
okay.
clock is owned by the
Way
city.
back, I think it was in the forties, the city put it in. I don't
Oh.
know. I'm not real clear on that history, but it was established. That's the first thing we did to make sure that it was our clock. Because that means because it's city owned, it doesn't run into the problem of funding a church for a clock.
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure you knew where we were talking about.
I didn't know which one it would be or where it would be.
So there you go. Now you know.
Now, back then, we got an RFP, we had a debate, and we wanted to get the clock with modern materials, the whole works, the outside, the inside repaired. But because it was a city clock, state law required us to have an architect do the analysis of what the costs would be. That would be the clock mechanisms, the face of the clock, the electrical needs, any structural needs, project management, all of that is part of the cost. Now we got 25,000 free cash from the city to set aside for that architect study. It came back around 65,000. And I left the council and it died at that point because we didn't have the money at that point. Now, this year, just recently, a piece of the clock fell off the clock, creating, as Greg brought it forward to the city, a liability issue for the city. Belongs to the clock.
Quick question. Externally or internally?
Externally.
Fell from the clock down to the ground. Outside.
Yeah,
Okay.
a not insignificant piece of the clock fell off.
If it
Thank
hit
you.
somebody, it would have hurt them.
Yeah, that's
And-
great. Thank you.
And now the city is pursued insurance, but because it was wear and tear, we just got word that insurance won't cover it. So now the city is pursuing some kind of external repair. But we decided that to approach the mayor, who's in favor, I think, and this committee to see if we can't reinvigorate getting this clock completely done. It's quintessential New England. It's exactly, as Stuart down at the CPA Coalition said, it's exactly what the CPA was designed to do. Community historic preservation. It's huge to me. You come into the city, there's the clock. If we are to renovate it, planning department has agreed to sponsor it. It would come forward to this committee through them. They put out an RFP to see what, in this fiscal year, I'm hoping, we will need to appropriate funds in addition to the 25 that's already there, maybe 50 more to get, you chime in anytime I make a mistake here, time to get the architectural study done. Once that study's done and there's a quotation, we would look for grants, but we would also come back to the city CPA committee, it could be as high as 250,000 to do the entire work. That
I don't know
includes,
where that number comes from, Dan. Because I just went and looked back at the November 2022 Verdun proposal or whatever, and that was 94,000 plus 20,000 for a ringer.
it's in my head from Mike Owens, and I think he was high too. So let's
But
just
it
say,
may not be that much, but
it
you know,
could
whatever.
be 200,000. Anyway, it includes the cost of the clock. The Verdun part doesn't include what it costs to actually do the work. Or maybe they are doing the work.
They are.
So there's electrical, there's a bell ringer, there's this huge heavy bell. It's swinging is one of the reasons things started.
It has not been swinging for a while. And it
It's
won't be
not gonna
swinging.
swing anymore. That weighs a couple tons. They're gonna use an electric bell ringer. You could set it to ring. It used to be that at, what was it? 6 o'clock, it would ring 6 times. I mean, back in the day, we would be able to hear the clock and it was lit and you could tell the time would be accurate. The time would be accurate. We would have non-perishable materials used. It would look from the street just as it does in 1940, but it's not. We're not going to use wood, which would perish.
That's the idea, at least. We talked about.
We were talking
and-
about
And
all
I
of
know
that.
John Bruner, who's on the Historic Commission, mentioned that this is regularly been on the list of historically significant items in the city, the clock, as far as restoration, and B, that the commission supported vinyl or some more weather resistant material that would not require somebody going up there and painting or
And
staining
one of
or
the
whatever.
reasons-
So it's so inaccessible, I think, is part of the issue.
Yeah, and one of the costs is getting a bucket truck up there to do all the work. I mean, to get the kind of structure you'd need up there. So because it's falling apart now, we ought to get it done right instead of like they did at Old Town Hall, they put a net on it because the bricks were falling off and that's been there for what, 5 years? We don't want to put a net around the whole thing, we want to fix it. I think it's time we got this beautiful piece of history done. That's what historic preservation is. That's just me. But I think one of the things against it, this is a congregational church. No, it's the city. It's the city clock. And to me, I wanted to get a feeling of what the committee feels about this, because if we come back for $200,000, we need your approval. Whatever the architect study is. And what was I gonna say? One of the reasons that piece fell off is windstorms. They seem to be coming more often. So they have to fix it. Greg, I've said a lot.
No, I mean, there's nothing that, I'm a member of the, full disclosure, I'm a member of the Congregational Church, but there's nothing that the church can do here. We're sitting waiting on the city to act on the clock because the clock is owned by the city. So we had this piece that was, 3 foot long fall down right outside the main entrance, and it was cause for a lot of discussion and concern at the church. And saying, when is the city going to act on this? Like, this is not, we can't even submit an application, the church that is, can't submit an application to the CPA because we don't own the clock. So this is what precipitated a conversation with
The
Dan
anti-8
and the
amendment
mayor. And the mayor wants, rightly so, the mayor wants this to be funded from CPA because it is a historically significant city-owned landmark.
It's not on the historic register though, so everybody knows that we're not.
Doesn't need to be.
No,
So actually-
no, it doesn't need to be.
That is a question that I have, just because I missed a couple of meetings in my first year here, and I do apologize for that. But I don't know that I've actually done any historical preservation items before in CPA. And so one question that I did have is, what is the qualifications that something needs to meet in order to qualify for funding from this particular bucket?
It typically has been at the discretion of the Historic Commission here in town to, sort of green light or say that this is a historically significant item in the community.
Okay.
I don't actually know whether as a committee, our feet are held to the fire. We've never actually had a situation where we've been at odds with the Historic Commission about that. And we've always wanted to have their approval or their designation that this is indeed a historic, because that's probably why we have a representative from the Historic Commission on the committee.
I don't think it needs to have a certain designation.
Doesn't need a designation.
It just needs, this brings up the whole conversation. If they didn't want it to happen, it couldn't happen. But the historic, we have to have the local historic commission agree that this is a significant historic item. So,
Done?
huh?
Have they done that?
John Bruner has
Yeah.
wanted this project done for years.
Well, I think they've had discussions. I don't know if you want something formal from them to say that it's a historic land.
We have it. We have a letter. We have a letter.
I have a bunch of letters from
Okay.
the city space. I think Old Town Hall is on the state registry. That's why, that's a historic preservation fund we did. And we've done other small ones like the
Yeah.
the cemetery, the library. They've been trying, I think they stopped trying to get it on the historic register, but
Anyway, look,
luckily. Anyway,
Okay, but it doesn't, so there's, I'm just making sure, I'm trying to figure out which boxes I need to check here, and it being on any sort of register is not one of the boxes.
no, it's
It's
local.
really just about whether
It's local.
the local historical ordinance. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And getting it fixed, well, now what really bothers me a little bit about city funding is that they're gonna have to spend some money, significant money, to get up there and make sure nothing else falls off it
Yeah.
while we try to get it completely done. I don't know, that's a separate issue. I don't know when that's gonna happen.
you guys have questions? One thing I remember this from the past was the discussion of the external versus internal workings of the clock and like what was valuable about the historic parts of the mechanisms versus the face. Is this part of this discussion? Or is it?
I mean, I'll give you I remember that conversation.
I remember
I was
I
always
just-
a little perplexed by that. I was like, I'm not a gear geek enough to like, I think John was like, oh, the workings of the clock that nobody can see and that nobody does see ever unless somebody goes all the way up to the steeple, which happens once every couple of months, maybe at most. Like he was talking about actually removing that and putting it in,
Yes,
the
putting it in
museum
glass,
or something like that.
maybe
or,
down in the lobby of the
but
church.
there is no, I think everybody that I know who is aware of the fact that the clock doesn't tell time and doesn't ring, and when is the city gonna fix the clock, is really just wanting it to look nice and it to work and maybe to ring. And those are like the three main things, right? So, and be safe now, because now we have, now we have pieces falling over. So I mean, I think those,
Okay.
that's the priority. And so the inner, like the old gear works that are not gonna be used anymore to keep time or to ring or whatever, I don't think are.
It's not something that's
critical to this
we're looking to spend city money on is essentially, right. Okay.
Correct.
To
And
be
I mean,
totally
I think if you
transparent.
check the boxes on those things, the lowest, well, like the lowest cost, reasonable quality.
Got it.
Project.
If we were to
will
try and renovate the mechanism, first of all, it would be very difficult to find the parts. And then the efficiency of it would be questionable. Jamie and I, to be totally transparent here, had some discussion. She was a advocate for making sure that historic renovation was exactly that if it was wood, it should be wood. If it was an old mechanism, it should be renovated. And I talked to Stuart down at the CPA Coalition, and these clocks have been done all over the place. And most of the time, they're done with totally modern mechanisms.
But from
So
the street, it looks.
It looks like wood.
if you looked at the design at Verdun, and I think we should send that around again, Greg, if you could, to the committee, it looks exactly like the clock, an old New England clock. You don't know it's vinyl. You don't know what kind of, and the hands, whatever they are, they're gonna last.
Roman numerals, but they're vinyl, I mean. it
Vinyl
looks
with a
old.
fiberglass, and they're not, and anyway, and the mechanism is going to be accurate. It's not gonna have to be reset every day. At least I thought that's what they said. And the bell can ring, and they can ring the bell for church services, and you can probably program it with an iPhone like you do with everything else. That's how modern it is. But on the other hand, when somebody drives in the city, it's like a quintessential New England clock.
So this
So
is going to be applied through planning. Planning is going.
planning, that's one thing we had to make sure somebody in the city, a city department has to go through with it.
Right.
Is planning. Allison, you're gonna meet with them, go up and look at the clock.
Why am I gonna be with her?
Oh, well, I was looking at this email. I don't know if it was you, which Greg it was. Maybe it was,
Oh, Greg Nuttleman, maybe?
yeah.
I think she just went up in the clock.
Yeah, Greg
She's on
Greg
board.
Nuttleman and Allison met some member of the church, Mike Messer, actually, who was on that call with the mayor and you. Mike took them up
to see how they.
This
can
afternoon,
fix
I
it.
think at noon or something, they went up.
They're gonna try and get a steeplechase. I didn't even know that person existed anymore. But it's like the old chimney sweeps. They still exist, I guess. Anyway,
So,
they're gonna try and fix it, whatever they can. Yes.
so Dan, there's gonna be a funding request to the CPA to supplement the free cash dollars for a design
As soon as
process.
we get a quote from an architect that we like, the RFP was sent out, I thought it was today. It was reissued. We have to get a quote. The mayor wants a quote before she asks for the money. She said she might give us 50-50 free cash, but she's waiting to see. She doesn't know, doesn't want to commit to anything.
So that architect is planning on being funded through here as well, is that right?
Well, it might be.
Construction.
We already got, just beyond, we already have 25,000 in free cash. It's still in an account someplace.
Yes.
So
But was that an open project?
No, that's not a CPA project. That's city free cash. The mayor at one point just to
Yeah, got it.
put that in.
I asked her for that to get the architect study, then we would find out. where
Yeah,
we-
okay.
That was from winter.
So we wanted to Greg and I wanted to let the committee know that
Thank
could be
you.
coming forward. This fiscal year, the architect study, I hope. And then next fiscal year, the actual construction. Sooner the better.
And these are good things, both the dog park and the clock to put in that pending spreadsheet.
I would-
See where, you don't need to do it right now, but I mean, but when we send out for the next meeting to be able to look at it and say, look at everything we're considering still in there.
Well, you can put 50 for the architect study and 200, I guess, Greg, for the clock. I don't know what that figure would be. If you want to put an estimate in.
2 years ago, November 2022, it was,
94.
yeah, it was 90, I'd say like 95 plus 20. What is that?
20 was the bell ringer.
So
100.
obviously costs have gone up, but 200
Well, you
seems like
also
a-
have, I would recall, architect study, structural work done, carpentry and things like that.
The
That-
I
construction
think we're
would be
looking
a-
at, I think 200 would be a good number as a placeholder. at
Like,
least.
But
that's all that is. We're
But
talking about.
that's a fiscal 26 expense, which I haven't.
You're not
started.
looking at yet.
I
Okay,
haven't
yeah,
started
yeah,
putting it.
right. But the other one, the 20, what is
So
it?
thank you for listening, but we wanted to let you know.
Okay, cool. Has anybody else during this discussion been thinking that there should be a woman out there going, save the clock tower? And then like there should be a wire hung, it's like Back to the Future, you know, with the clock. Anyway, sorry. All right.
Okay,
I knew there was a reason he was chair.
Yeah, that's it. For
Loving
that moment of levity. This Valley CDC additional materials, letter
Yeah.
of support.
yeah, okay, so the committee asked them some questions last time, and they came with some answers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a letter of support from the Affordable Fair Housing Partnership for their application.
Great.
Great,
And that's Jana, yep, who's been before the committee before.
We love you.
okay. The next piece is their reported impact they sent me. So we're gonna not look at the numbers above because they're inaccurate now, but we'll look at the impact numbers first. Yeah, sorry.
Can't quite tell why they're inaccurate. Why?
No, sorry, the numbers above, we've received a more accurate report. So we're just looking at the reported impact table right now.
Got it.
So the committee asked the Valley CDC what their impact was.
Mhm.
And this is the information they provided
What
with the
impact-
their previous grant with.
The
city
one,
of
the one that
Easthampton.
was, right,
Yes.
we said, we gave you this money, what happened with that? Right. Now
And
I
how many
remember.
people did you work with?
That's a good amount. Is that over 1 year? That's over a couple of years already.
That grant was in fiscal 22.
And this is, since then, they were able to help this many people. Oh. That's pretty significant to me.
Right.
Good.
Okay, and then the other piece of information we got from them, so something that the committee discussed was rolling over. If we recall, their original request for this fiscal 25 was this number down here, this 201,875. That was what they were asking for in third quarter fiscal 25. And as we started talking in the meeting, they brought up that perhaps some of their funds, or maybe Scott, you brought this up, that their funds from their current contract that are not yet expended could be rolled over into this new contract. And so this sheet shows their calculation as of last week where they expect their funds to be in their current contract and what they are expecting that can roll over.
59,000.
So they are expecting to roll over 59,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that results in the revised request going from 201 to 142, which is the number that we saw in the spreadsheet earlier.
Scott, congratulations on a fantastic question, because we just saved $59,000.
Thanks. If only all my questions for that, Luke.
I'm sure
But
that,
the request amount will still be 201.
Yeah, actually,
75.
yeah, I think with,
We're just, that the net impact to our coffers would be 142. Is that how I'm interpreting that? We're
I think
gonna-
actually that's how it needs to be. I think that's not how because did they do this or did you do this?
They did this.
So I think what they're saying is, oh, we'll just keep it and request less, but actually they can't do that. They're gonna have to request the whole thing,
Close it out.
but we'll close out the other one. That'll hit the books in
we have
July,
to
and
do, do we
that's-
have to do that?
We do.
Really?
this,
That's
yeah,
law?
this was a whole discussion. The year you weren't here, we talked about this a lot, and the answer is yes.
It's awfully inefficient.
I
I think this
agree.
committee before has been a little laissez-faire, like with the Stonehouse bathroom funds, those were open space, but then suddenly he was pursuing a historic designation under those funds. I think historically that's flown, but I think best practices is that it
I
can't.
take issue with the word laissez-faire when I was chair. I was always after those remaining funds.
Totally,
I was
totally,
always
totally.
You did
I
it.
think
You did
I
ask about
guess
it.
I'm-
Jamie would give us answers.
Totally. My sense is just.
Scott being as aggressive as he is, we're finally getting the money back.
I don't know about
And
that.
Ava, is like, she's actually calling people and shaking the tree. I think, Dan, I also think that it's best to have like a single outstanding project rather than having like multiple, you have this old one from a few years ago plus another one and they're basically the same project. I think it simplifies things. by
As
bringing that
long
together.
as it's clear that the hit to our account this year is 142,000, right?
No.
That's 201, but we can expect 59 back
Oh, right.
in
okay.
July.
That's what I,
So, if you think about it, it kind of comes out to.
so
That's
they
not a
know
long
that
wait.
that's the process. They're gonna have to close out their account and tell us we're no longer needing these funds and then they get to our.
I haven't spoken with them about that yet,
Yeah.
but we haven't approved this. The committee hasn't voted this budget,
Yeah.
this.
Wait, we
application
should just
yet.
let them, I mean, I don't
That's
know
a-
if their
But that's the
application's good.
process.
Like the application needs to be for the 201, like
Right.
that we very much appreciate this.
Yep.
And that is going to be a consideration in our voting on this project, but just the way we need to do it.
As long as they understand it's not 259,000.
No, that would- yeah.
I think that's their,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're clear about that.
No, that's great.
Well, they call it rollover. So rollover to me means it goes to the next fiscal year.
And I mean, we're almost up to 100. What did we have before? We had 20, what do we have, 29
What do you,
in previous, open accounts that we got back?
that we've closed
And we
out,
closed that, right? What do we have?
45.
45. We're over 100 grand if once we do that. So there we go.
Applaud you, Scott.
No, I don't need that. I just think it's good for, it's good for, like, we need to be able to have their flexibility to fund the things that we need to fund. So, all right. Cool. Anything else on that? So they're going to be coming back to us next month in order to vote. So they're not here right now, but I am encouraged by these updates and can take these and think of any questions we have for them. when they come back.
So next month I'll invite Lathrop and Valley CDC
Yes.
to our meeting,
Can you tell me when, we're talking March's meeting?
March 20th.
Good, I'm not doing anything.
You are now.
Yeah, I was worried because suddenly we're going to Florida. Worried. Okay,
Anybody else know they don't have March 20th?
March 20th is the next meeting.
You'll be here. Here, you good for March 20th?
Yeah.
All right. We hope to see you there. You're always welcome regardless, but we'd love to have a member of the,
You'll have somebody because we'll vote before that meeting. So.
but you know so much now, just saying.
We can write you a letter for your meeting on March 12th.
She listened to the whole budget. She didn't leave.
She stayed awake.
Um,
That's all we need, a warm body.
All right, any other questions on that?
No.
Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.